what we are going to cover in this course and doubts from your side that you want to ask, right? So basically, the first thing is that what is the duration of this course? So this duration of this course will be 6 weeks approximately. So it can take around 1.5 months, right? And what will be covered in this course? So, the first thing that I want to tell you that we'll cover the both part of the API testing. We'll do it by the SOAP, we'll do it by the REST, but our main focus will be on the REST testing. SOAP is not much in use these days, but it depends. Our clients people came that who are still working on a SOAP-based project, so we will provide support for that. But within these sessions, our main focus will be over the REST. Right. So the things that are going to be covered is the REST testing. First, we'll see the manual aspect of that. Then we'll come to the automation, and then we'll start with the automation of these API testing. We'll do it by the Groovy. So meanwhile, when we'll work on the basics and we'll see all the setups within this session, I'll tell you about the Groovy. What is the language? And after that, when we're done with all these, we'll start with the framework. Then the framework that we are going to cover in these sessions will be the data-driven framework, the most used one. From end to end, from one end to the end, we are going to create it. Is it necessary to learn Groovy? Okay, so I'll tell you one thing that within the SOAP UI, if you want to do the automation, you should know the Groovy, right? So in the case of when we specifically, if I talk about this tool, the SOAP UI, then for the automation part, yes, we need the Groovy. Okay, so will we work on a project? So yeah, we are going to work on project. We made our own custom built application called the Retail app. It has all the features from the admin login to perform different search scenarios, adding product to the database. It has everything. It has its own backend database. It will run on a server, so it will act as an our own web service, our own API that we are going to test. So this will be our project throughout these sessions. Will we cover SOAP? So again, like I told you that our main focus will be on the REST. And I'll tell you about the SOAP, that how things used to work. It's much older than the REST. So I'll tell you about it, how it used to work, about the basics of the SOAP, right? And if anybody needs, more attention towards the SOAP, they can tell me. We can help with that. Will we cover free as well as the paid version? Yeah. Okay, right. So firstly, our main focus will be on the free version. Reason being, for the paid version, it's a subscription base. You have to pay every month. So I will cover both of these. I'm going to show you the project running on both of the version. But first, we'll start with the free version. Right, and after that, because with the free version, things are little tricky. You can achieve what is available in the paid version from the free version when we integrated with the Eclipse using different testing frameworks. So it's little tricky, but we can do it. And after, when we'll get done with it, I'll show you that how things can be done with the paid version. Will we get the link to the recorded session for every day? So yeah, everything that we're discussing here, every session is recorded, and a link will be provided to you after the class. So if you want to rewatch the session, you can do that. So about the rejoining, so yeah, at any time you can rejoin the class if it disconnects or if something happens. You can either watch the recording or can rejoin it. Okay, so will we help you with your resume and the API testing? Yeah, we will help you. We'll guide you around within the sessions. Also, will also prepare you for your future interviews and the commonly asked things by your employers. Okay, so do we need to learn Groovy ourselves? Okay, this is really important. Okay, so the first thing is Groovy is basically a scripting language that is too based on Java. So if you are good with the Java basics, it won't create any problem. Even if you are not good with the Java basics, you have a little bit knowledge about the programming fundamentals, right, or the logic works. You're good to go. So from your side, you don't have to do anything about the Groovy. I'll tell you within these sessions only the things that we need. All right. So what is the scope of SOAPUI testing? So, basically, if I just talk about the different type of testing that has been performed within the SOAPUI. So we perform the REST-based testing, we perform the SOAP-based testing, we perform the HTTP-based testing, right? So, even like I told you that the SOAP-based projects are not much in use these days. REST is in use. So still that thing is working in the SOAPUI. It's a quite old tool now, but still the coming up things are still working with the SOAPUI. So it has a good scope. Again about the Groovy, so like I told you that the most of the part of the Groovy is from the Java prerequisites of this course. Like I told you that the main thing is that you know anything, any language, the basics of it, basic fundamentals, how basic structure works, like the conditional operators or different loops work, what are the meanings of different collections. Even if you don't know about it, I'll try my best, to give you an insight about the basics from where things get originated. Right. And at any time you face any issue within the sessions, you can contact me. I'll provide you my email. So I'm available on the email 7 days a week. So even if you're practicing and if you're finding any issue with any program or anything, you can contact me. Right. So will I help you in your project? So yes, I can guide you to your project. And what are the different type of class? Okay, so the people who come to these sessions are mostly, those are new to testing, or who are, migrating from the manual testing to the automation testings, or the people who have their individual projects or the project from their employers, and they want our input in that. So these kind of people come to these sessions, right? So these are, the basically basic questions that been asked. I think I covered most of the things. Still, if something is in your mind, you can ask me.
I'm good.
Okay, 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 Chandra. Okay, so now I'll show you that how the structure looks like. Okay, so like I told you that it's going to be for 1.5 months. So initially, our focus will be on, you know, uh, installing all the in the initial week, in the first week, what we are going to do is we'll set it up the environment, installing all the tools, backend utilities that we need, right? Creating the database for the application, and performing some basic requests in the applications, right? So all the basics, and also if we get in within this week time, so we'll also cover the Groovy basics, right? So all the basic things will be covered within this week, right? And after that, within the coming up weeks, we'll go much more deep with the Groovy, how like the request that we're putting up manually, how we can do that with the help of Groovy, right? Everything, this the parameters, assertions, everything that this thing can be done manually or with the help of Groovy, step by step. Right. And with the coming up 2 weeks, we are going to do the same thing, doing the things with the Groovy by the automation part. And in the coming week after that, we are going to shift to the framework. Right. For that, we are going to use the Eclipse. For again, initial days will be about the setup, that how we are going to set it up, right? And we'll go further. So, each day when we'll go through these, step by step, I'll talk about the things that we are going to cover. Talking about today, so today I'll give you introduction about the web services, how things work on the back end, and what this course is all about. Like we have covered the frequency, but now we are going to discuss about some technical jargons. Right? Okay. So let's begin with this. Um, All right. So basically, the first question that should come to our mind when we are learning the SOAPUI tool or we are taking the SOAPUI testing is that what we are doing in this kind of testing. So the first thing that we are doing is we are doing the testing of web services. Now the question arises that what is a web service? Okay, I'll come to this in a while. First thing, I'm just going to talk about a normal scenario. What happens is, okay, so just hold on. Okay, so normally, suppose on the internet there are there are number of users, right? They are using the different websites, and in same way, I'm going to talk about a website which is called MakeMyTrip.com, right? It's a website. It's a website for booking hotels, booking flights, right? And on the internet, there are multiple users that come on this MakeMyTrip.com. Some came for booking something, some came for information, some came for booking flight, and everyone comes with a different type of request, right? Suppose this is the user one. It goes to MakeMyTrip.com, right? When it goes to MakeMyTrip.com, it opens, go to the flight section. What it sees is that it has an option that you have to enter your destination. You have to enter from where you are traveling. You have to enter the date, right? You have to let's say enter the number of passengers that want to travel. If you want to take the return flight or a direct flight, these are the common things that you'll see in these websites, right? When a user tries to book a flight, right? So what are these things? These things are basically the UI. What you are seeing on that website, what you see in those fill up text box, this is the UI of the website, right? User enters its information, then the make my trip, concludes that information and shows the results according to that, right? Till the UI part, it's fine that we see a UI, we fill up the information, but what is what are the scenes on the behind? We don't know about it. That how that information is getting processed, where it's going, and from where we are getting the result, right? So the on the back end, what is happening is the work of the web services, right? There is an underlying API behind every kind of these services about every website, right? That API is processing that data and providing us the appropriate result according to our information. For the request that we are sending, we are getting a response, right? So if I talk about more about the same scenario, so now the question arises here that this is the user 2 and this is the user 3, right? These are different users. They come with a different request. So how this website process with the kind of data? So the answer is the API, right? Now how that API works. So what Make My Trip basically does is, suppose I am a user, I go to the I am this user, I'm the user one. I want to go to some certain location. So I'll fill up the information that the destination that I want to go is, let's say, Goa, and I want to travel from New Delhi, right? On the dates, let's say 15th of March, and the number of passengers are 4, right? This is the information. Now what Make My Trip will do is, this information, it will put it in a form of request and it will send it to different vendors, right? Now, who are these different vendors? This website, different vendors are nothing but different airline websites, right? It will send the information entered by the user to the different websites, right? This is the vendor one, or the let's say the airline website one. This is the airline website two, and let's say this is 3 and this is 4, right? And these websites will evaluate this information, and if they have the availability, if they have the slot, they're going to send a response, that yes, on this particular date from a certain location to some certain location for this number of clients, we have availability, right? So what is actually happening? A request is going from the make my trip. This is another request. And these all are the requests. And suppose airline 2 or the vendor 2 has the availability, right? So it will send back an information. And what this information is? This information is the response, right? So uh, a request is getting generated by one website, a response is getting generated by the another website, right? How this is happening, how this information, in what language this request has been written, how it is going from one place to another, how we are getting the right response, this is all the work of this API. And this whole scenario, the request going from one site, coming from another site, responses coming from the another site, is known as the web services, right? And using the SOAP UI, we are testing these web services. We are testing when a request is getting generated, whether we are getting the right response or not. We are testing it. We can manually test it, right? With, within the SOAP UI, we can do the automation of that, right? That if some certain information goes in, that some this kind of response should come out, right? I hope you got the basic idea about the web service. If you have any doubt, yeah, if you have any doubt about this scenario, please tell me.
No, I'm good with this.
Okay, good. All right. So moving forward, it's just about the basic, about how the basic scenario works. The same way, I'll tell you about this Make My Trip. Same goes for the Amazon and for the different application, right? Now I want to talk about another, important thing that might come to your mind, that you know that it's not possible that every website on the internet can be written on the same language. Some can be in PHP or some can be in .NET, right? That's just an example. So how they are able to communicate it, how they are actually communicating, right? So the reason behind this, that is again firstly the API. Second is that the neutrality. I mean, the request that is been generated from a PHP website, right, is in the same language from which the response is getting generated from the .NET based website, right? So basically, the difference is the reason why they're able to communicate is the mechanism. The mechanism is that has been created by the web services, so they were able to communicate. So the conclusion of this point is that it doesn't matter that in which language it is written, unless there is an underlying API, right? There is an underlying mechanism for sending a request and for the response for the communication over the internet of two websites. Right. Now, if I talk about this mechanism, that what are in which language or in what form this request has been generated, a response has been generated, then those are these, right? The request that is getting sent, it can be a SOAP-based request or it can be a REST-based request. When I say that a SOAP-based request is getting generated, then it can be written a SOAP-based request, it can be written in the form of XML or JSON. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. If it's a SOAP-based request, then it is in the form of only XML. And if I say a REST-based request and response is getting performed, then the request can be written in the form of XML as well as the JSON. Right. Within the case of SOAP-based request, within the case of SOAP-based request, it will only be written or programmed in the form of XML. When I say that it's a REST-based request, then it can be in the form of XML or the JSON, right? And just just keep in mind these two things. I'll again we are going to have in-depth discussion about what is a SOAP-based request, what is a REST-based request, what are the difference, right? When both of these are like except XMLs. Okay, I'll come to that part. Okay, before that, again, different example of web services. So there are different type of web services present on the internet. Like I gave you an example of Make My Trip, Facebook, Gmail. For the Facebook, Gmail, you can relate it to like if most of the website these days, for the login or for signing up uses the API provided by the Facebook or the Gmail, right? You saw that example that you opened a website and on the register option, when you have an option to sign up to register on that website, you see an option that you can log in from the Facebook, that you can log in from the Gmail, right? So again, that's a very good example of the web services, the APIs that are being provided by the Gmail and the Facebook, right? Okay. So in the same way, these all are the example of these web services. All right. Okay, after that, like the example that I gave you for the Make My Trip, right? Okay, again, and the really important thing. So, about the API and the GUI. So, basically, you know that GUI is the graphical user interface. What you'll see on the website is your GUI. What you'll put in that GUI, the information that you'll pass to the website through that GUI, what the website do with it is the work of the API. So the thing here to say is that behind every GUI there is an API. There is an API which process the information that has been put in the GUI, right? All right. Now coming to some technical terms. Oh, and I know that this lecture, the first lecture is much more theoretical, right? We're not doing much of the practical things, but it's really important, to get technically familiar with these terms, right? Okay. So about the jargons in the web services. So like these terms, we talked about the XMLs, JSONs, REST, and WSL, WADL. So what all are these? So like I told you about the XML, it's again, XML is a language in which we write our request or we get the response, right? And again, JSON is also a language in which we get the request and response, but the way they look, the way they are written, it's totally different. XML, uh, you know, XML is in the form of tags, like the HTML. XML is in the form of tags. Every information comes under these tags. There is a starting tag, there is a closing tag, and with the closing tag, and our information resides between these tags, right? So every information that exists within the XML are in the form of tags. Whereas in the JSON, we do not use the tags, right? Do not use unnecessary tags like the body tag and all. We directly pass our informations in the form of key and value pairs. Every data is going to have a key, right? Suppose data is my name, Abhinav, right? So it's going to have a key. It's going to have a key uh, that is name, right? So everything is stored in the form of key and value pair. Again, I'll tell you about it with the example I'm going to show you in this class only. Again, from this, you can relate it that how, using JSON is much more easier than the XMLs. Okay, I'll come to it. Now about the SOAP and the REST. So basically, the basic difference among the SOAP and the REST is that both of these are, the way websites communicate. It can be a SOAP protocol or it can be a REST architecture. SOAP is a protocol, REST is an architecture. You're going to see the example for this, both of these, right? Both of these are being used. Both of these are used to communicate for the communication between two websites for the web services scenario, right? And like I already told you that whenever a SOAP-based request is getting generated, it will be in the form of XMLs only, right? So you can relate that it can be one of the reasons that SOAP is not much in use these days. Right? And within the case of REST, it can be in the form of XML, it can be in the form of JSONs, right? And the, okay, the next thing is about the WSDL and the WIDL. So whenever, suppose your client provides you with the WADL, I'm sorry, the WSDL, then it's a SOAP-based project, right? Whenever you're provided with a WSDL, that means you got a SOAP-based project. If you are provided with the WADL or the URLs, that means it's a REST-based project, right? In the coming up classes, in the very next class itself, we are going to see example of all of these, how a WSDL look, how a WADL looks, how the URLs look. Right. Within no, most of the times within the case of REST, we'll get the different URLs. Right. We hardly get the WADLs, and with the case of the SOAP, we will always get the WSDL. Right. Okay. Uh, these are not a kind of file. It's not a file that WHA and WADL. It's all of these are the links. Like the URL is a link. These are also the links. All right. Okay. Now the again a very important thing. Okay. So again talking about how this web services work on the back end. In the complicated scenario where the one website is in the different language and the other website is in a different language, right? So this can be done through these two things that these web services follow. First one is the systematic flow, and another one is the secure flow. The systematic flow, again, about which I already told you, that it doesn't matter that the website is written in which language, right? They will generate either an XML-based request or get the XML-based response, or they will generate a JSON-based request and get the JSON-based response, right? So, and this will maintain the symmetry among these services. If they are using the XML, and they will provide data uh, within the form of tags, right? And if they are using the JSON, right, the web service will use the will pass the data in the form of key and value pairs, right? Again, the same thing. It's just a technical jargon that they will follow the systematic flow. Okay. Next is about the secure flow. This is fine that the data can be sent in the form of XML and JSON, right? Then where the SOAP protocol and the REST architecture comes into play, why we need it for the secure flow, right? Suppose we are, two banks are communicating. So suppose an ATM machine is communicating with the web through the help of these web services. So some critical information is getting passed. Some critical information from one bank to the another bank, some critical information is getting passed, right? Can have a customer's account number, some login credentials, right? So there is a need of there is a need of a secure mechanism, right? And that is being provided us by the SOAP protocol or the REST architecture, right? we basically, what happens is that if we directly send an XML or a JSON-based request from one website to the another website, right, without any, without using any protocol in the architecture, it's not secure. And for the scenario like banking, it's not acceptable, right? So that's why we use this SOAP and the REST architecture. Reason being, they provide us the encryption layer. Over this XML and the JSON, we'll get an encryption layer, so the information cannot be used for some fraudulent use. Right. Again, about these are the the basic things. Mostly the common we can relate it to these scenarios. All right. So the next thing is about the WSDL, WDL, and the URLs. Okay. Like I told you, the WSDL been used in the case of this SOAP-based request, and the WAD and the URLs is for the REST or the um, WADL and the URL is in the case of the REST, right? Again, I'm not going into much of the theoretical part. We'll see an example, then we'll get the basic understanding. Okay. Next thing is about the XMLs. Okay. So how an XML looks like, how an XML request looks like. All right. So, like I told you already that XML is a tag-based language. Like the RHTML, XML has its tags. There is a starting tag, there is a ending tag, right? Every tag that starts will end, right? And the same example that I gave in the case of JSON, we can see here that I started a tag called name, right? This tag is ending here, and between these I have my data. With the starting and the ending in between, we have our data, right? And this XML within the case of web services
I
is,
mean, normally
yes.
what we will call as attribute, element, and all these things in XML. In this
Okay,
example,
okay,
what will be called as attribute and what will be called as the element?
okay. So within this example, it's simply a starting. It's simply a starting and ending tag. When I'll show you the XML, when we'll have kind of different data, right?
Mm.
Like within the XMLs, we have a body tag, we have a head tag, and there are different tags. So I'll come back to that part later. I'm just telling about the basics and the comparison with the JSON.
Okay.
And in the bigger picture, this comparison goes for the REST and the JSON both,
Mm.
right? This you got this part right, that SOAP uses the XML. We can't use the JSON format in the SOAP based request.
Yes, I mean, so the request should go in XML only. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm sorry. So there are basically the different tags that are present. Uh, can I just put this class on hold for 2 seconds?
Yes, yes, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Shall we begin?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the example of basically the XML. Now the same scenario, if I talk about JSON, that within the case of JSON, we do not have to use different tags, right? If you want to write an XML request, it won't start with directly with the data. Suppose you want to pass the name. Always there will be a head tag, there will be a body tag, there will be a SOAP envelope tag. There's going to be different information that should be present in the formatted when we are setting the request, right? Suppose if I can show you an example. Okay, right here I do not have one.
Mm.
Okay, no worries. I'll show you in the next class the basic difference. Okay, I don't want to open this tool right now because we are going to first see the all the installation and the part. Then within the tool, I'm going to see you. But the basic thing is that it's really complicated to write an XML-based request, right? You have to use some kind of information that are mandatory to be passed. But within the case of JSON, we can directly come to the information, right? If I want to within the request, I want to send the let's suppose the credentials. Uh, Using the web services, I'm performing the login. Suppose I'm performing to the retail app, right? So I can directly in the form of key and value pairs, I'll pass the key, username, and I'll pass the value directly. Suppose this is the username. It could be anything, right? And the password, right? Whereas in the case of XMLs, this information again before this information, after this information, there are going to be lots of things that you have to pass in the form of request. Where in the case of JSON, simply This is the simple scenario. I'll just have to pass this thing in the request, and a response will get generated. So it's much easier and it's much more understandable to work within the JSON. We are going to see the same scenario for both of the things, right? So the basic difference here is that firstly we are not using tags, we are not using any other information within the case of request, right? We can directly pass our data in the form of key and value pairs. Every data is going to have a key. From that key we can call it, we can put the updation of that key. Right. So the thing here is that we do not have to remember any syntax. We do not have to remember. In the case of XML, you do have to have a little bit knowledge about how these tags work and all. But in the case of JSON, there is no syntax. There's just information, and that will go and comes in the form of key and value pair. Even the response that we'll get, from the other website, from the server, from the database, it will come in the form of this key and value pair. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just try to explain, theoretically how what's the basic differences again, but we'll get used to it when we'll see in the next class after installation. Okay, about the SOAP structure. So what this SOAP structure is. So what happens within the case, what about the SOAP structure is like I was telling you that when a SOAP based request is getting generated, there are lots of information that is passed. There are different tags that are present. So basically, it's about that. That again, we are not passing directly our data.
Mm-hmm.
A SOAP request always starts with a tag called SOAP envelope. Within that SOAP envelope tag, we have a SOAP header tag, and in that SOAP header tag, we have a SOAP body tag.
Got it.
And within that body, we have our data that we are going to pass as a request, right? So this is about the structure that every SOAP request will be structured in this way that it will start with the SOAP envelope and your data will go inside the SOAP body, right? We have an illustration here. This is how it looks like. This is where your data has been passed. And within the case of REST, we are directly passing this, within the case of REST or in the case of JSON, we are directly passing this body, right? This is the
Yes.
basic difference among these. And again, it's from the older time that it came.
Mm-hmm.
So it's following the way the how the HTML is being performed, the same way the XML is being performed. So that's why we preferably these REST is much more in the use. Okay, and also within the case of REST, it also deals with the XML. So whenever I'm talking about the XML that the request is getting sent in this form and all, so that applies to a REST also, right? But the main reason that we are using the REST because we want to use the JSON. We can already use the XML within the case of SOAP. There's not much difference among these. So again, for the JSON, we are using the REST. Okay. All right, so this was about the SOAP-based request and the REST-based request, about the XMLs and the JSONs. Now I'll talk about the SOAPUI tool. So again, about the history of the SOAPUI, it was introduced in 2011 by a company, Smart Beer. It I'll just come to the important point here is that there are two versions of the SOAPUI that are present. You must saw. One is the one is called as the SOAPUI or also called as the free version, right? And another one is the called as the Ready API, right? Ready API. So what that Ready API is also called as the SOAPUI Pro, is the version that has, if I talk about layman terms, which has much more functionality, which has much more functions than the free version. Even if you open the website, I'm just talking about the layman term. Okay, so if I click on here, you'll see that these are the different features that are that are present within the case of this professional version only, right? Okay, they change the interface little bit. So earlier we get the difference right away directly. Okay, no problem. Okay, so in the layman terms, again, if I come back to that, on the website, it's not really showcaseable right now. Is that you cannot create different testing scenarios in different windows. There is just one window present. There is no auto save feature within the pre version, right? I mean, like we open the Eclipse and the different tools for the programming, they have the inbuilt auto saving feature. Within the free version, we do not have that. We have to manually save our project after some time. So these are about the basic thing. But the main difference that I want to talk about is that within the free version, we cannot use a testing framework like the TestNG and the JUnit. Within the pro version, we can do that, right? That's the main reason, but that's the main difference among these. And that limitations can be overcome that we are going to see within the sessions only when we'll reach to the frameworks using the Eclipse. We are going to integrate our free version with the Eclipse and use the TestNG framework. Right. Again, it's about the later on things when we'll go
So
forward.
when we integrate with Eclipse that time, I mean Java is enough or Groovy we need to do.
No, see, Groovy is limited to the SOAPUI tool.
Mm-hmm.
Our tests are going to run from the SOAPUI itself. We are, I mean, tests are going to run inside the SOAPUI. We are going to run it from Eclipse.
Okay.
I know we are going a little further, but I'll just give you a small illustration that will make it clear. This is my Eclipse. This is the SOAPUI. My test cases are present here,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I cannot use the test ng framework and the JUnit framework inside this free version. So what I'll do is, but this is my Eclipse. This is Eclipse, and here I can use the test ng. So I'll create a test scenario here in the Eclipse, right? And I'm going to integrate this SOAPUI project here. So basically, I'm going to from here, from this part, I'm going to run this all of these from here, right? My test cases, all the data is present inside the SOAPUI itself, but I'm just running it from the Eclipse. It's a kind of process that how we are going to do it. So later on we are going to see it, and here we are using the Java, right? But how these test cases are communicating with each other, how this process is automated, been done by the Groovy, right? So Groovy is here only within the SOAPUI, right? I hope you got a basic idea what we are going to
Yeah.
do from this, right? Okay. All right. So this is about the free version and the paid version again. Like I told you, yeah, it comes with the 14-day trial, and do not install the pro version of the Ready API right now. I'll tell you the right time when we'll reach to this part when I'm going to teach you this. Only then install it, so the trial won't get it over because you cannot reinstall it, uninstall and then reinstall it.
Yeah. And the only thing is OS need to be.
I'm sorry.
Only way is we need to uninstall OS.
Reinstall the OS. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
reinstall the OS. Yeah. All right. All right. So, Chandramohan, this is about this session. This is just about the introductory section. Maybe it was a little bit boring because we are discussing about the theory, but it's important to get familiar with the terms,
No, it's
right?
good.
Okay. So, you have any doubt from this session? Anything that you want to ask or? Uh,
Actually, in my project, I mean, we are using the soap pad.
okay.
I mean,
Can you come a little louder? Actually, your voice is
yes,
not really
yes.
audible.
In my current project, I mean, we are using SOAP, this WSDL. I mean, they have loaded one URL.
Okay.
So the moment we load that one, I mean, it contains some functions or what we will call that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I
The
mean,
features,
from
yeah.
manual point of view, I'm aware of, I mean, in XML, what data we are entering and what is the response, something like that. But I mean, mainly my objective is once we get response, I mean, how to compare with actuals and all those things.
Oh, all right, all right. Yeah, this is the kind of basic scenario that we perform in the automation. That you know. Okay, I'll just show you if I can. So the kind of information that you're saying is. Uh, Here it is. I don't have a working file right now. Okay, I even didn't show you the retail app. So okay, here it is. So what we'll do is that it's just a small example of this thing. So like the application that we are going to work is the retail app. It's just one of the data sheet for that, the data that is going to be passed. So if I'm adding products to that in the form of request, like I'm adding this furniture or this different products, right? So I'll set within the data sheet, I'll set the expected result as the this. So what I'm going to do from the Eclipse or from the TestNG framework, going to test that whether my expected result is equals to the result that I'm getting from the response, right?
Yes.
So I already pasted here my expected result, right? That expected result is this, the product is added successfully. So if my expected result is get equals to the actual result that I'm getting from the response, then I'll say this test is passed. Right. So these just are different techniques that we are going to follow. I was just giving you an example. Like you said
So
that you.
even I mean, we can send data to CSV file and retrieve from CSV file. All these things we can do.
Yeah, we can do. I mean, like within these sessions, our main focus will be on the XML files,
Yeah.
like we cover on the basics. But we'll discuss about that also. There's not a problem. Like we'll create an end-to-end scenario, end-to-end framework from where the data is coming from, data is going out, or generating the extent reports. You hear about the extent reports, right?
I have, but I'm not familiar with the reports.
Okay, the extent report, like here, just one of the sample extent report. So it's much more meaningful and graphical. Here, the all the test stars are written, which tests are passed, which are skipped, which are failed,
Okay.
right? And there is can be lots of information that can be added, and it's really easier to create. When we'll make our data-driven framework, we'll just have to add one library, and it will work.
Okay.
Right. So, and also in the next class itself, I am going to show you that the retail app. I don't know, just not opening the software yet because first of all, we are going to set up few things to run that applications. Then I'll show you. Okay. So, like you say that you're working on a soap-based project, so I'll try within the sessions, that will give as much as important to the soap part. Anyways, within the session, always I always start with the SOAP side of the SOAP UI tool, and then eventually when we'll reach to the framework, we'll start doing things with the rest, right? So within these sessions, I'll try to be much more focused on the SOAP because as you're saying that you're working on this.
Theoretically, is this combination possible? I mean, web service supporting both SOAP and REST. For
I'm
example,
sorry.
makemytrip.com is there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So whether I mean it contains WSDL and the other one.
You're asking that whether the Make My Trip is using the
No,
WSD?
not MakeMyTrip. Any other
Hmm.
web service can
Hmm.
support both two things. That means
No, no,
WSDL and the other one. Or it will be like if they use WSL, they won't use the other one. Or if they want to use the other one, I mean they will
no,
skip
no.
WSDL.
Either like I told you about the one thing that web services follow a symmetric flow, right? If it will be in the form of what do you say? In the form of it's in the form of WSDL, then it will use WSDLs only, XMLs. If it's in the form of WADL on the URLs, then it will use the JSON only, right? So it can't be like the two-way.
No, no, what I got it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
both two are different, but I mean, my question is, I mean, whether any particular application have two features like supporting WSDL and the other one. Might be my
About the
question is something like, but I mean, for example, if there is a web service, some
okay,
access.com, something like that, or
okay,
my make my trip.com, whether
okay,
I mean it contains both WSDL and the other one, or it will contain either of them.
okay. So your question is that suppose we want to test a web services, can it have both, and it can have a WSDL and a WADL both? This is your question.
One, sorry, yeah, yes.
Okay, so your question is that suppose there is a website, there is a web services,
Mm-hmm.
there is a web service that we want to test,